Good morning, good day, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our session where we discuss scaling businesses in the GCC with focus on United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia business growth. It's my pleasure to moderate this stimulating discussion as we traverse the fascinating landscape of the UAE and Saudi Arabia's booming business ecosystems. As the CEO and founder of Afiouni global advisory firm, my career spanning 2 decades in international media, international relations, governmental affairs, and public reputation management has offered me unique insights into the interplay of geopolitics and business, particularly in regions as dynamic as the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Our session today brings together a panel of distinguished experts. We have Tom Morf. He's the CEO and co-founder of Aramedes Timepieces, a noteworthy executive and entrepreneur. Latifah RahmDel, co-founder at Israr Group, adds her perspective as an experienced communications professional. We're also joined by Imad Lahad. He's the MD at APCO Worldwide, an innovator, and they call him a disruptor in the field of communication and storytelling strategies. And with us today is Felice Hurst. She's the GCC advisor to the work crowd and MD of Hanson Search MENA, offering insights from her more than a decade-long experience in strategic recruitment. I'm thrilled to begin this insightful journey with all of you. And I want to thank the work crowd for this opportunity and arranging this event and this insightful discussion. The work crowd is mostly a platform that engages freelancers. They get to connect freelancers with recruiters and employers where everyone ends up happy at the end of the day. So I'm going to kickstart this discussion with you, Tom. And my first question would be, with your extensive experience in strategic planning, what do you find to be the most challenging aspect of finding and retaining talent that is necessary for Aramedes' sustainable growth?
Thank you for asking me the first question. I'm happy to be here and to exchange all this information, which is also useful for me, for sure. The biggest challenge, is always in my entire career, not only with Aramedes, is finding the right people that fit into an organization. I can see that with Aramedes now, as we gain momentum and we have more activities, there's tons of applications coming in, be it, people looking for an employment or even freelancers or organizations. And this is one of, I think I told somebody just recently, I said, the biggest challenge for me is really finding the right people. And how do you select those people? Especially in a startup organization like we are. This is mission critical, you can absorb, if you have a large organization, you can absorb maybe some wrong decisions in people, but in a small organization like ours and still around the globe, we need to be very, very careful in picking the right people. And for me, there's a couple of things that are crucial. It's of course the skill set needs to be right. The skill set, what has a person done in the past? It doesn't necessarily need to be, absolutely not in the watch industry, except you're looking for watchmakers or technology guys. Then you have to have this particular skill set. But for us in the luxury business, we're in the luxury business. You don't necessarily need to be from that industry. Why? Because they bring outside views, they bring new perspectives, and very open to new point of views. I can learn from them also, if they look at things from a different angle. But another very, very important factor is the personality. The personality, especially in a small organization, it has to really fit together. I want people to take responsibilities, the responsibility they want to achieve, they want to accomplish something. And I'm not looking for employees in a way. I'm looking for entrepreneur-minded people, for instance. And I think all these combination and all these elements are not easy to find. You have a big pool of people, of talents, but picking the right ones is always, it's a constant challenge you're facing. That's the same for Aramedes. And here I'm very anal when it comes to these things. You know, I want to have the right fit. My personality as the co-founder and CEO has to match with the other personality. And I am a very people-minded guy. You know, you can bring me the best results you have, and you know your grades and your diplomas and this and that. If the personality doesn't fit, it's not a right fit for us.
This will bring me to the next question for you, Felice, as the advisor of the work crowd and the MD of Hanson Search MENA. How do you tackle the challenge of identifying and recruiting talent that is necessary for the growth in the MENA region?
I mean, this is that killer question, as Tom just said. Every single CEO globally, their biggest concern is always talent. And I suppose me, in my capacity with Hanson Search and the work crowd, you know, we sell ourselves as the talent advisors because we can look at that full overriding problem that is in place. Here, it seems to be doubly worse because not only do we have an incredibly transient market, we have issues with work visas, language skills, as well as talent, and then the ever-changing decisions with the clients in the region, and specifically when looking at the likes of Saudi Arabia. So how do we go about doing this? I mean, how long's a piece of string? I mean, I am a firm believer in what Tom was just said. It's about the personality. Yes, we have job descriptions. Yes, we have client needs. But in the end, it's about what's those personality traits. And this is where we're seeing this enormous rise. Yeah, we're seeing an enormous rise in the independents. I mean, I keep seeing this word come up, which is solopreneur. This region is slightly behind the rest of the world because we have always had to have a work visa to be able to work. And until 3-4 years ago, you could only work for one person. Now, in the last 12-18 months, this has drastically changed. It's one of the positivities that came out of the pandemic is this flexibility of work and enabling these businesses and individuals to actually be able to access talent rather than having your full workforce, which is very heavily expended here because you've got to have your gratuity, your healthcare, your holidays. Now it really enables companies and individuals to grow fast and specifically find that dedicated talent that maybe isn't in the permanent workforce. So I think you're going to see an enormous rise in it. We're seeing a lot of it in Saudi Arabia, and I know Latifah herself and Imad, you know, lots of these agencies here are using more and more and using global talent to fill these specific gaps in the market.
Cool. Imad, you work in a different type of organization. APCO is a huge organization. It's global. It's almost present everywhere in the world. So as the managing director of APCO Worldwide here in Dubai office, what are some key strategies that you implement in sourcing and retaining the talent that is necessary for the sustainable growth of APCO?
Thank you, Nivine, for the opportunity and as well for the organizers. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on this panel, this distinguished panel. So it's not about the strategy specifically, but I would take some of what Tom mentioned and Felice about the challenges and try to look around them, right? Felice mentioned something about the market being a transit market in a way. I came to UAE to be based in UAE and live in the UAE in 2008, although I was back and forth working in this part of the world since maybe 1997. But the transit that we saw in 2008 period before and after is different than the transit that we're witnessing today. UAE, Dubai was predominantly, and more than Saudi, even Saudi as well to some extent, a bridge connecting so many of, I would say, the skilled workforce going for immigration, maybe in Canada or the US and other parts of the world in one way or the other. Right now, the transit is still happening in a way, but it's more about UAE and Saudi, the strategies that they have tied to their visions to retain talents within the countries. You know, the golden visas are an example, all the incentives they're doing and keeping talents in this part of the world. So the competition is the transit, the internal transit that's happening in between the GCC countries. whether it be between UAE and Saudi Arabia or the other way around in some cases. So the shape of this migration is changing. And add to it the post-COVID ability for the talents, and this is where I think the work crowd come in, to be able to be based in places where they're comfortable, like Dubai, while working with a global perspective and a global company. So for us, being a global company, we're trying to position as much as possible the ability and what we stand for globally, not only in the region, to attract the best workforce, regardless where you live, regardless where you consider home, and be part of this work directly or indirectly. So if you find that talent in the UAE, because we're one bottom line company across the globe, so finding a talent in UAE that can service us maybe in UAE and Saudi and other places is an advantage to us. So not necessarily those talents are tied specifically to the physical address of the office. We consider all talents as APCO talents, regardless where they reside. And this is how we utilize and maximize the contribution of our talents globally in different markets.
Nice. Now, Latifah, you're a partner, you're a co-founder of Israr Group. And I know that you have a lot of operations in Saudi Arabia. How do you approach the challenge of sourcing and retaining the necessary talent to ensure sustainable growth in the Saudi market?
I think I saw it throughout my career. Yeah, like it's the talent itself, because we had it like when I was in-house at the agencies, it depends on the team. And then when I became on the client side, it was like, yes, we go for the agency, but then it's like the people that make the account successful or not. And I try to implement that in the work that I do. I'm more focused on finding the niche where we can work in a market that has like the bigger dogs, which for us is the cultural understanding. So finding those people who not only have the talent, but then they have the understanding and make the relationship work, and how to retain them. I think COVID showed us all that we can work comfortably from anywhere, and that encouraged many people to start hiring more freelancers and do the collaborations. Because even within my own experience, I've collaborated with my ex-agencies that I worked for. They became my clients because they need that Arabic side, that element. So I think it is transient, but it's also, it's the people, the talent, but then how can you link it and make it work for a specific scenario? Having the adaptability, because like no matter how much you would be prepared, the clients, they come and go. The teams are the same, but if you work and grow your network in a way where you can always tap into those talents whenever you need them, on, I would say, on basis of your needs and the client's needs.
This brings me to the coming question to you, Felice. You're the advisor of the Work Crowd, which is the global network of freelancers. What insights can you share on how businesses can best leverage the potential freelancers for collaboration?
I mean, even just the word businesses. I mean, you could be a multinational, or you could be an individual. This word again, solopreneur, building your own business, and that's where the Work Crowd comes in really well. So you can be a freelancer finding projects, or if you win a major project in Saudi and you need to access more talent, you can actually then build your own agency on the platform. And that's where we're seeing a real big growth. In the last 12 months alone, the Work Crowd really grown its presence in the region. We've just set up an ADGM as well. And we're seeing more and more of it. And what a lot of the clients are looking for in the region, they're looking for global talent that can work here. So that whole digital nomad, all of these visas that enable you to work anywhere in the world really enable this platform of ours to be as successful as it is. Decentralizing centralizing a decentralized workforce, the wrong way around. You know, it's how can we actually get to this talent? How do we find them? And the algorithm is super smart and matches immediately with the talent, which differentiates us from all those other platforms that are out there, of which there are many. I mean, the likes of Fiverr, I think they've got about 50 million freelancers on their platforms now. I mean, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I was reading some figures this morning about the rise of the freelancer world. And so in the US, last year alone, the freelancers earned $1.3 trillion. In the UK last year, they combined contributed £162 billion to the economy. This is massively growing year on year. So the work crowd is a place of enabling these people to connect, and the words Latifah was using, to collaborate, because I think that's the future of how we will all be working, is this collaboration piece.
Imad, have you considered collaborating with freelancers, for instance? Does APCO collaborate with freelancers?
We have a couple of external consultants, we call them, and specifically subject matter expert on some of the engagements that we get. In other cases, in our industry, you have spikes, especially when you have big events happening concurrently. And so many of these external consultants or subject matter experts are, big number of them are ex-APCO as well. They used to be with us, like Latifah mentioned, and they went into their freelance kind of route and entrepreneurship.
Why do you think they left a big organization and they decided to be on their own as freelancers? What makes the employee who has a full-time job leave a big organization and decide to work on their own? I am one of them, by the way. So, but I would like to hear the other side.
Yeah. In our case, we don't have an established pattern. Some left APCO because this is the agency where they went to other agencies or client side, and then after multiple experiences, 5 or 6 years, decided to be on their own. And then, we stayed in touch because we have APCO alumni, where, so many of our ex-colleagues are part of it, and we do activities. So they came back and we have the relationship, and they developed other skills. So in our database, from the people that we're working with, we don't have a specific trend why they did it. I know for a fact, and this is common for different reasons, post-COVID, so many of them decided to do that as well. Maybe they moved, a couple of them are in Canada, other parts of the world, but still, because of their subject matter expertise, we work with them. So we don't have like an established pattern with the ECs we work with in our part of the world.
Because what we've seen with our freelancers, about a third of them are full-time freelancers. Other people will have them as side gigs that they'll start off doing a little bit of extra because their passion might be a specific sector. Then as this passion grows, it then becomes this permanent full-time freelance independent. So it's and I think again, COVID enabled people or helped them to get over this fear of how do I go independent? Yes. It's all about finding out what you want to do and how you want to do it. It's like Latifah saying, what's your passion? What's your strengths? What's going to identify you out of all of the masses?
I think it's also related to some kind of freedom and in relation as well to passion. Tom, you've worked with the biggest watchmakers in the world in Switzerland, and you've lived in different parts in this world. And you've decided, when you decided to be an entrepreneur, and you launched your one of the biggest collections of your watch, which is the Mecca collection, which is addressed to the Muslim communities in the world. You decided to establish this business in the UAE. I mean, specifically about, like, out of all the Muslim world and Arab world, you've decided to establish that and launch it in the UAE. Now, it's available in different parts of the world, I know, in the Muslim world, but why did you choose the UAE? What are the incentives that you found here, and what kind of obstacles did you face as well?
Well, for us, it was obvious, with the technology we developed. It's a platform technology. We did the first application for the Muslim world, but the cradle of the Muslim world is in the area of GCC, the Pan-Arabian area. And for us, for me, it was clear we have to understand the markets, their needs, to understand the culture, to understand what is the driver of these people. And for us, it was obvious we have to be there. That's why I personally relocated to Dubai, because I was in the center of the Muslim world there. And of course, this gives me, I have no access to Mecca, but I talk to a lot of Muslim people to understand, and we have deep appreciation when we did our research, the deep appreciation for what the accomplishments of the Islamic world is, you know, when it comes to mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and so on, navigation, etc., etc. It was obvious that we have to be there to better understand. If you do it from a remote tower in Switzerland, you never really understand how a market works, and for us it was key to be there right from the beginning, especially for me.
Cool. Latifah, working with freelancers, it brings a diverse skill of sets. But based on your experience in working with freelancers, what do they bring to the table? What are their priorities? What are their requests usually when you bring them on the job?
It ties up to everything that Imad, Tom, and Felice said, because Felice mentioned like the passion. Tom mentioned the entrepreneurial mindset, and Imad mentioned the commitment, because they live, but they know what they want to do. So in a way, it's easier if you work with the right influencers. It's much easier. They know what they want. They can manage their own time. You give them the brief. They're working with you. They become part of the team. I like the influencers who melt into the project, into what you're trying to do. And while you have the 3 months, 6 months, 1 year with them, it feels like a coherent team. And then it goes. And it's nice, like, to come in with them, go out, like, to come out of it. It's more fluid, I think. And then you feel that you're also making better use of resources, because Imad mentioned events, like as a starting agency. We've been like almost 2 years old now, running into 2.5. It wouldn't make sense to me to build a dedicated events arm. I would have someone on my team that has an experience to manage the project, but I would always prefer using like the best freelancers when it comes to that specific event. So I think it's a combination of the passion, entrepreneurial mindset, and the flexibility that they bring.
And I think one of the interesting things that the work crowd is doing, our event organizers, is that they do connect freelancers together. It's not only the employers that get connected together. So if I, for example, want to work on a project, and then I need someone, as you said, related to a service that I don't provide, I would always connect with the freelancer. That's just to echo what you said, Latifah. But Felice, we've said earlier that the work practice post-COVID is not the same pre-COVID, and it's not the same during COVID as well. People are more concerned about their mental health. People are more concerned about the work-life balance. Are employees, have you noticed from the employees that you worked with or you recruited and you helped companies grow their businesses, are they more concerned about that than before? Are the employers willing to give this? Are they willing to provide the work-life balance? Is it true, or is it just a kind of PR that they do with many companies nowadays?
No, we've seen a real rise. I mean, so much more of this word impact, people's titles having impact in them. In internal communications is really driven. I know we are slightly behind the curve on this conversation to possibly the rest of the world, but it's absolutely happening now. We've got consultancies coming in, specializing in culture, and it is being driven from the top. So it's good to see. And I know people regularly say when we live in Dubai that they think we're on holiday all the time. Far from it. I do think this is, of all of the regions of the world I've worked in, I think we possibly work the longest and the hardest. And if you are dealing with Saudi, you're dealing 6 days a week. So it's around now that we're all on telephones and it's all access. It's expected immediately, and a lot of people's region are night owls. So there's a big pressure on employers to make sure their workforce are being mindful. But I think the environment here and the people that work in it are busy people. It's very difficult to find that balance. And I think that's the problem the whole world over. But they're definitely driving change here that we've never seen before.
I mean, I believe that when people decide to be entrepreneurs or freelancers, when they decide to be their own boss, because I think that's the right term for it, I think they're looking to do something that they're more passionate about, which is what all of you said. And they also want to have this kind of freedom of walking away from something they don't like whenever they want. Imad, I know there are lots of constraints, there are lots of obstacles when an organization like APCO wants to grow the business. And it's always multiplied by 100 times than an entrepreneur has within his or her capacity. What are the barriers that, or let me call them the obstacles that, or challenges that would face APCO when, in terms of growth in the region? We're talking about mostly Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is changing rapidly now. It's becoming much better for business growth and business development, and it's growing rapidly. But still, sometimes there could be obstacles or challenges. How do you overcome these challenges? Can you take us through what an organization like APCO would face in terms of business growth in this part of the world?
Sure. Although APCO is present in more than 34 like major cities in the world, but we are still, until today, entrepreneur at heart in the way we approach business, right? So we're one bottom line company, as I mentioned. The founder and everyone that's working within APCO approach every day with an entrepreneurial mindset. Even within the company, we launched several other companies, sister companies, to cater for other services like creative and technology and so on and so forth. So entrepreneurship and ability and agility to adapt to situation has been the key driver for us. I think the major challenge we're facing in the region and in Saudi Arabia, as you said, the changing landscape is not internal, it's more external. It's about the choice of projects. It's about the scalability. Yes, we can scale, but at the same time, we're very cautious about the projects we want to engage with, things that are sustainable, things that are making a difference in the community at the same time. So if we're going to look at the growth in Saudi Arabia, maybe we can grow 3 or 4 times the size that we are today. But I think we're very cautious about how to go about it, what to choose, and how, and create that as well. You mentioned work-life balance. For me, at least, the way I look at it is more work-life integration, more than balance. I think this is very idealistic to talk about balance, given that, you know, we glued to our mobile phone everywhere, and we're reachable, especially when you have responsibilities. You're not an external consultant working on a specific project with a specific duration of time, and you know that you have to dedicate that time. And so it's more about choosing the areas of growth and being specific on what you want to achieve around that. So I don't think the challenges are internal, they're more external on the battles we would like to take.
Interesting to hear the perspective of a big organization in the world of rising number of entrepreneurs. Latifah, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to comment because like some of the stuff that Felice shared and what Imad said, what I like about the whole well-being and the balance and everything that in our region, because of how young we are, and I'm speaking about the UAE compared to Saudi, which is older, we have this shift, the cultural shift that the country, the government is trying to do. So it's nice to see that, as Felice said, it comes bottom down. You have many initiatives from the government, and I see it more because in my work, I'm focused on government communications and working with Abu Dhabi, for example. You see, it's beyond just like creating the ministries and the entities related to well-being, but right now they're rolling out like specific programs within the Abu Dhabi government as a pilot, and whatever works in Abu Dhabi, you know, like federal, and then it goes to the rest of the UAE, and the same is happening in Saudi Arabia. So to Imad's point, it is integration, but it's also, it remains to be balanced shوية on some level. But at the bottom of all of this, if you look at well-being, why are we trying to do like increase well-being and integrate that in our culture? It ties back to to work, because at the end of it, it's about productivity. If you're feeling well on
And again, you know, when you do something that you like and you have the entrepreneurial mindset, whether you are in a big organization like Imad, or you're an entrepreneur you're doing things that you like. So you wouldn't mind taking a call at midnight if it's urgent. You wouldn't mind waking up in the morning to prepare something. You wouldn't mind working on a plan over the weekend, because at the end of the day, you're doing something that you like and you're passionate about. And that's where it also brings me to my other question for you, Latifah. A major part of any business success and growth is the employee engagement. How do organizations maintain engagement of freelancers? Freelancers come for a time set of a project. They don't probably see their growth as part of the company growth. So they're helping the company grow, but it might not be related to their own growth because they might move to another project. So how do organizations maintain this engagement between the freelancers and the employers?
I think for me, I apply what I went through, because I did the big agencies, the global agencies, and then I went in-house with the government, and then I felt very comfortable to be on my own first. So I started as a freelancer. And that experience, I think it will either make you stay as an independent freelancer, or start considering building your own business, because you would see that you tick the boxes of what starting a business requires. And then the way it worked for me, through my connections, my previous connections, they would reach out to me. And then one agency would take me from another agencies because they saw me on a call. And then I saw that that's important, like how certain people dealt with me. If they call me anytime, I would make room for them, these agencies. So I try to do the same with my freelancers. I make them feel as part of the family. And even when the project ends, I keep some sort of communication with them. I would always check in with them, ask them where they are, what they're doing. So COVID came, and it made the stars more comfortable leaving, and that's why they have like people like you, they have more confidence in doing their own thing. And it's a specific way of just being as you are with them, and they can see that, and I think they see that you can grow them and they can grow with you, because as the project gets bigger, I saw some of my freelancers hiring other freelancers. Yes. And I wouldn't mind, because it's up to them how they share their slice of the pie. And I love seeing that, because it gives me more confidence in having a full team. Sometimes they would manage finding the team that I need instead of me going to individual freelancers. But then you have cool platforms like Felice, where you just delegate the entire process to, and you have a full team, as she said, because what she said is very true. It's like creating an agency for that specific project, and then the agency goes into different directions.
And I think quite often the fear of independence, of being lonely, and I think which is where these communities are really enabling this growth in the market, which sustains the businesses, enables businesses to scale, and enables individual freelancers to upskill. It's this community reach, and that's again platforms like the Work Crowd why they're really booming.
Yeah, Tom, you probably interview lots of people to work for you, and how long does it take you to decide that this is the right person that fits my vision for my company? And based on what? Is it based only on the chemistry that you mentioned earlier, but do you give them time to work for a month or two and then you decide? Do you decide from the first meeting? And do you believe that working with freelancers makes this job easier rather than hiring someone full-time and then having to rehire again after a short time?
No, definitely. No, definitely not. You know, hiring a freelancer, hiring people, agency, whatever, that's a process. You know, this process goes through several steps. If I only would make a decision based on my gut feeling. That would be a little bit too feeling driven, I would say. No, of course, again, I said in my initial question, the skill set has to be there. That's a given, you know, that's a given. Chemistry needs to be right. I let these people also be interviewed, or I let them work, let's say, for half a day or a day, and to see how they interact with other people in the team, for instance. The same with agencies, you know, I need to clearly see the passion. The business we're in, it's nobody needs this, you know, nobody needs watches in general, you know, but you have to have passion into this. The same for agencies or freelancers, you know, I need to see the fire in their spirit. They can identify, and they'd rather tell me from the very beginning, yeah, I'm just doing a job. I don't need people that are just doing a job. I need people, they contribute, they go the extra mile. And this is something I even offer shares, you know, to people who I see they go the extra mile for a project because they totally go into this. They're creative, they're contributing, they're doing the job on time at the right costs, and so on and so on. So giving them the right incentive, be it an agency, be it a freelancer, be it an employee, I want them to be part of something big. The identification is mission critical, and I have the freedom to do so because I'm the owner of the company. And I don't need to have 100% ownership of the company. I'd rather have people, and that's basically the American way of doing things, or the Anglo-Saxon way of doing things. The people at Apple, you know, when they started, they were all entrepreneurs, and they went the extra mile, and they wanted to accomplish something, and they wanted to change the world. And that's exactly what we do. Our philosophy is exactly that way.
And Tom, this brings me to this question for all of you. What do you think of AI? Do you feel that AI could, if you wanted to hire someone and you felt that AI can do this job for me, so instead of hiring 3 people, I can hire 1 person and she or he can use AI, or you can use AI? So this brings me to this question, because this is a very important topic to discuss when it comes to AI. This is like making headlines everywhere now in recruitment. There's a lot of fear that AI is going to replace employees. There's a talk that it's going to replace journalists, which I personally believe is not going to happen. It might assist somehow in shaping a text, but it doesn't create the information. But for you as a business owner, are you implementing AI? And do you really believe that one day you're going to say that I would use AI? I pay a very small amount of money per month and it will do the job for me.
Is that a question towards me, or is that a question to everyone?
I will start with you, but it's a question for everyone.
Well, I can, you know, to be candid, you know, I mean, I'm experimenting it for myself right now, and I'm trying to find out how far can I go with artificial intelligence? What can it do for me? I cannot say, you know, conclusive yet. I definitely see there is an addition. I can shorten the path, but the human touch, I'm a big fan of the human touch. I would never, let's say, write an article just by artificial intelligence. There needs to be a personal notion in it. It's a kind of, it's a crutch for something, you know. You can use it. I mean, of course, for my, I'm just judging from my perspective. It can be helpful, but it's not. It cannot be the final result, and it will not replace the human touch and the human being. In certain areas, yes, probably yes, but in that field I'm doing it, no, I don't think so.
Imad, are you implementing AI at APCO?
Well, actually, before this, you know, ChatGPT craze that has been invading the world for the past couple of months, we launched out of Dubai in 2018. APCO's AI Comms Lab to start testing and playing with AI before it went mainstream in the past couple of months or a year. So this is something that we have been working on behind the scenes before these big platforms came in. And to your point, and that debate about journalism, I've been there in multiple phases of my life, you know, with the digital transformation, like when the internet, you know, came up, and what's going to happen to journalism, what's going to happen to X, Y, and Z, and it's not going to affect us, and what was going to happen to books. And fast forward, social media came in, and the same debate happened, and we saw that, you know, it did affect so many. AI is kind of the same kind of change, but is multiplied when it comes to speed by, you know, quantum leaps. Things that used to take a couple of years to materialize in the digital age, social media age, now it's happening in a month's time, the acceleration of change. I think to Tom's point, there is a human touch somewhere, yes, in our industry for sure, when we sit and we work in reputation management and advising, you know, governments or corporates or individuals about their brand and their reputation. But I think the transactional kind of work, so much of the transactional point of work will be much more efficient and optimized. That's a fact. And it's not only for us, right? And finance industry everywhere. But at the same time, I think the skill sets that we're looking for with our team members existing and the ones that we are hiring, what's going to replace, I would say, the majority of individuals is not AI. It's people who know how to use AI properly, how to use it efficiently, and how to maximize the use of it. And the ability of...
I would actually challenge you on the point on journalism, because as a journalist for 20 years, I wouldn't say that social media has impacted journalists. People who look for the information and people who look for the real story, they look for a source that they trust. There is a decline in trust in media globally. Tom, are you saying something?
Yeah, I wanted to say quality is important. It's
Yes.
about quality.
Yeah, it is about quality. And unfortunately, there is a decline in trusting media because there are so many people who claim to be journalists, and they are the ones who are feeling threatened by AI. It's not the real journalists who would feel really threatened by AI.
I think between two things, Nivine. So when I talk about this, I'm not talking about the journalist and the quality work that comes from investigative journalism, for example. Talking about the platforms, the institutions, how they operate, the business model that, you know, I would like to read the newspaper in the morning, and this is how it's going to work, and advertising is going to work the same way, and so on and so forth. That ecosystem is changing, and now it's changing much more, right? But still, yes, with the advance of AI comes fake news, comes you know, all the things that we saw in different parts of the world, comes the deep fake when it comes to audiovisual, and about the authenticity of the information and who's bringing it, and so on and so forth. And this is where the human element to it and the journalists will prevail at the end of the day. Talking about the business, the model as it stands, where people resisted change and say it's not going to happen. So some big names went out of business because of that. And our industry, the same thing. No, it's not going to affect us. Still, you know, you need the human element to do this and to do that. Yes, to some extent. But I think we need to have individuals and talents working with us that can learn, unlearn, and relearn at a very high speed within maybe a month. They used to do something in one way. There are opportunities and tools and platforms to enable them to do them differently, adapt to that, and make that time or make use of that time to elevate their skill sets into areas that AI cannot do it. So this is what I meant by individuals who can use them, optimize them to the best, to their advantage and to their employer's advantage, or to their company if they're, you know, entrepreneurs.
Felice, do you fear that companies might have some resentment towards employees who use AI? Or they're going to give them added skills because they have more, they're going to be more productive in their time?
I mean, I think we're all fearful of new technologies, isn't it? It's fearful of change. I think there are definite pros and cons. I mean, AI in the recruitment world is, to me, terrifying. You know, I mean, candidates now, if they're applying for jobs on LinkedIn, which is not the way about going, you know, you're having to have your AI registered CV to make sure the keywords are coming through. So it's coming away from everything we've all just talked about: passion, personality, attitude, and it's just too one-dimensional. So we're going to lose a lot. And I think this is where a lot of the poor graduates coming through are really struggling, because most of these graduate positions, these hirings, are AI enabled. I think, you know, how we've got to have to integrate it. how we do it is a whole other story. It's a bit like Twitter now, and then tweet, what's the new one? I mean, there's so many. How do we navigate this? How do we trust it? Modern marketing, I think it's just a terrifying future that we've all got to get our heads around.
Oh, that's a very pessimistic view on AI.
He's a non-marketer. I find it quite, yes, mind.
Does it affect recruiters? Like, do you feel like I don't know if this person who I am bringing to this company who I want to recruit for this client of mine as a recruiter, if he or she is using AI, then after a few months, the company discovers that this, it's very hard to know if this product is AI made or human made, and it's changing rapidly now, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very. I mean, I think it's all part of the process. You can't rely on anything. I mean, LinkedIn in the end is what we would in the UK call yellow pages. I mean, it's not, you're not referenced on LinkedIn. So unless you're actually going and using the human side, you've got to take everything with a pinch of salt.
And Latifah, are you implementing AI in your work? Is it something that when a freelancer reaches out to you, or you reach out to a freelancer who you want to bring on his or her skill sets, do you ask them if they are familiar with different AI platforms, if they're using AI?
Not really, no, not yet. But for me, I look at it as a tool. Like, I don't think we should be scared of it. I think we use it as a tool. We become versed in it. We could do that. And I like what Tom said. For me personally, I would always prefer the human element. And what Imad said, like, we use it to our advantage. If it makes somebody's work more efficient, they will turn around easier, faster, and then they review, they do their human part to it. By all means, I wouldn't mind. And it also ties to the opportunities and everything that it creates. And something that even me and Felice are working on, which is looking into that, because whenever you have a lot of fear or resistance toward change, the response shouldn't be trying to make them see as much as demonstrate that some safety. So we're working on something like a program that we're trying to do, like to train people, for example, and our focus is upskill, reskill, because as Imad said, like, they need to learn faster.
Imad wants to say something about what you're saying, probably.
Good. Go ahead.
I totally agree. And I think one of the, I tell you from personal experience, one of the main topics that we're discussing with clients and the questions we got, which we already are doing internally, is ethical use of AI. I think, Nivine, to your question, if you would recruit someone using AI, and how do you validate the quality of work? I think validation, as Tom said, getting a talent goes through a multiple process, not only about a piece of output that they produced, regardless how good that piece of output is. But I think the ethical use of AI, like, again, reflecting on previous experiences in transformation, we were at the stage where we used to help companies and brands develop their social media guidelines, the use of Twitter, Facebook, so on and so forth. Is it allowed, not allowed, and all of that ecosystem, right? And we also that you cannot stop it. So you have to make sure that people working with you, they have some guidelines to work from. And for AI, it's becoming much more important to have these guidelines about ethical use of AI. Because I give you an example, like maybe it might be out of completely good faith, right? We are in the content business as well. So someone going on any of the generative AI platforms, ChatGPT, Bard, Claude, whatever which one of these, and using it to create a piece of content for a client, right? Or to put it out in the media. And because of their own ignorance, maybe that how it works and how it collects data from the internet, you might have issues that has to do with the IP, the content that's being there, where it's taken from, and so on and so forth. Whereas there are so many tools to validate if this information is to what extent is unique, to what extent is really not invading anyone's privacy, and so on and so forth. And that might put us as an agency, or the client, or the media, and the client that's requesting the material in a particular situation. Not to forget that Google will downplay the content that's coming out of AI, which is not going to yield the results the client would like. So this is an educational process. So someone might be doing it, as you said, as a first draft, and then add to it, instead of assigning this to a junior resource, as you usually do, and then you get the editor-in-chief will come in and put some additional element on top of that, out of good faith, just to minimize the time. Do that, fine-tune it a bit, put it out there to the client, and then you come forward as an agency that you're not producing unique work to your clients.
It's interesting that we're talking. Yeah. Go ahead, Imad.
I'm saying that will put you in a situation, and the client as well, in front of their stakeholders in a very particular situation. So I think ethical use of AI, whether it be on a global level or on a company level or industry level, or this is an area where we're very much invested in working with our clients to put the guidelines and relate to their industry, of course, on how they use AI in their industries as well and their practices, not only within our industry.
It's interesting we're having this conversation about AI and work, because as we speak about, we have your opinions are kind of matching in terms of thinking about the positive sides of AI, but educational institutions in the world share Felice's concern about AI. And actually nowadays, there's a kind of very big resentment towards AI. Because AI is able to do a thesis. Like, I spent a year doing my thesis 10 years ago, and now it could happen in just a few minutes. And that also makes me frustrated in a point, because where's the element of research, for example? And what I would say now is that at work, it's the same thing, because how do we learn at work? We learn from research, from practice. If we give it all the time to AI, then this element of practice and the learning curve would probably raise lots of questions on that aspect. Latifah?
Nivine, to your point, 10 years ago, it was human effort evaluated by human effort. I think there is also a responsibility on the educational institutions, not to complain, but to tie back to what Imad is saying, which is create your plagiarism evaluation tools, update them, make them more advanced, because maybe this is the product that's coming from the other side. So is it like where the balance is? Like, should we just sit and complain about what's happening from the other side, but we also have a responsibility to elevate their grading and evaluating and systems? And this is interesting because I was having my admission course yesterday with you made me think about the research for the
research is always fun, especially when there's a human element to it and there's a lot of communication. There are a few questions that I got here, but they're mostly related to AI, and I believe that we covered that enough. So does anyone like to add any? We're coming to closing the session. Actually, we're running out of time. It was a very interesting discussion, but does anybody want to add any? Yeah, Latifah.
I have to say this. I know that we spoke about freelancers and everything, but there is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is the training. I think it's really important that the agencies, clients, platforms, everybody look into this, especially with all these changes that are happening. And like ever since I graduated, I maintained that relationship with my university because I think it helps a lot, and it closes the loop on many of the topics that we usually discuss, which is like, I don't know, Emiratisation, Saudization, human element. If you go to the people who are from the same majors, train them at your agencies. These are like your next generation employees. I think there is a big disconnect between the private sector and the education system. We look at freelancers, but I think it's important to look at training people.
Interesting. And that's what you and I are doing very well now. So, ladies and gentlemen, does anybody want to add anything else before we close the session? Cool. So our session today was very interesting. And I'm sure that we will meet again and discuss different aspects of freelancing, AI, recruitment, obstacles, incentives in business growth in this part of the world, which is the fastest growing region in the world. But unfortunately, we're running out of time, so I have to close this session. I want to thank you, Tom, CEO and co-founder of
Thank you very much,
Aramedes,
everyone. Thank you.
Timepieces, Latifah, co-founder at Asrar Group,
Thank you.
Felice, advisor to the Work Crowd and MD of Hanson Search, Imad, MD at APCO. Thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of the Work Crowd and myself, I thank you so much for your insightful collaboration today. It has been personally interesting for me, and I hope it was interesting for everybody who attended the session today. And I hope we meet again soon. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day ahead.
Take care.
Same
Thank
to
you.
Same to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.